DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves all of us, and especially you, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, package, mindset, philosophy, book, brand, and this masterclass, daily masterclass, by the way, that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to succeed via a reduction in complexity. How to lower the complexity in wherever you're trying to succeed. You're trying to succeed in life in general. You're trying to succeed in your business. You're trying to succeed in your career. Are you trying to succeed playing a sport? Is there one specific project you're working on right now that you want to create success in? Today we're talking how to create that success via one of the angles for creating that success is through reducing the complexity of whatever it is you have going on. So let's first of all get a definition of this word complexity so that we're all on the same page. You understand where I'm coming from here, so you can completely not only understand but be able to implement everything we're going to talk about here today. So when I looked up the definition of complexity, it kept coming back to this word complicated. And I use complexity. I don't know, complexity just sounds a little bit more official, right? It sounds more serious when I say complexity instead of complication. So since the definition of complexity kept using the word complicated, let's get a definition of complicated. It means consisting of many interconnecting parts or elements, intricate. So many interconnecting parts or elements, intricate, is what we're talking about here today. We want to reduce that, okay? We want to reduce the many interconnecting parts of anything that you're doing. We want to reduce the intricacy to make it simple enough for anyone to do, understand, whatever other verb you will need to engage in order to reach your success. That's what we're talking about here today. And the reason why this topic is the topic is because complexity, it slows us down at best. If you think of your own life and your own situations, when things get complex, best case scenario, it slows us down, because when something's complex, now we got to think a little bit harder about it. We got to decipher stuff. We have to figure things out. We got to take more time to understand what is going on when something's more complex as opposed to less complex. I mean, that just makes sense, right? The more complex something is, the harder we got to look at it, and the more we have to strain to understand what's going on. So at best, it'll slow us down. And I would think for anyone listening to this right now, complexity slows you down because listening to this show, you're an above average individual. As I've told you, there's studies out there that say people who listen to podcasts on a regular basis, or in this case, masterclasses on a regular basis, you are actually voluntarily looking for things that are going to make you better, self-development and personal growth. On average, these are just above average individuals. So it probably slows you down. But with those average and below people out there, you know, everybody else who's not listening to this right now, for the most part, complexity just stops them in their tracks. Complexity stops them from doing anything. Have you ever worked with someone and there was a little bit of complexity in what you all were doing? Maybe you all were doing the same thing. There was a little bit of complexity in it, and maybe you got a little bit annoyed, maybe a little frustrated because you had to do a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra thinking. You had to take extra time, put some extra effort in just to make sure things were going right. But there was another person who was right there with you doing the same thing, and when they faced the complexity, what they do? They did nothing. All right, they didn't put in the extra work, the extra time, the extra thinking, the extra effort. They just did nothing, and they threw their hands up and said, well, I don't understand it. I don't know how this works. And they didn't even want to do the work to even try to figure it out. Now, while you're the type of person who may be kind of annoyed or perplexed or bothered by the fact that you had to do a little bit extra mental work to figure out some complexity, average and below people, when things get too complex for them, they just quit. They just basically, they do nothing. So we want to make sure that we're lowering complexity in everything that we do, because it's just inevitable by the law of averages that you're probably going to have to deal with some of these average and below people at some points in your life. And they can be beneficial to you if you make things simple enough for them to understand. Now, if things are too complex for them, they'll be useless to you. But we want to make things very easy to understand, not only for, again, those average and below people that you're going to have to deal with inevitably in life, because there are too many of them for you to avoid them all, but also for yourself. I mean, imagine if you take an above average individual like yourself and you make things very simple and there's very little complexity, how far can you go and how fast can you get there? I mean, the possibilities are endless. So today, we're going to talk about how we eliminate complexity as much as we can so we no longer have to deal with this problem at all. All right, everybody follow that? Does that make sense? Are you interested in that topic? Good, let's get into it. Point number one. The topic, once again, is how to succeed by reducing complexity. Point number one, stop trying to do more than one thing at a time. Do one thing at a time. Don't try to do more than one thing. Not 1.5, not 2, not 10. One thing at a time. You have heard the old cliche. If you try to chase 2 rabbits, you will catch neither rabbit, and you'll end up, no, both rabbits will get away, or you'll end up hungry. You won't get to eat either of those rabbits if you happen to be a rabbit consumer or a rabbit gatherer. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, you end up being what? Nothing to nobody. You have heard these cliches many times probably. If you haven't, then you heard them for the first time. I'm gonna let you know they're cliches. You will probably hear them again, maybe from me. And I wanna let you know these cliches became cliche because they are based in truth. When you're trying to do more than one thing, when you're trying to be more than one type of person to different individuals, when you try to do more than one thing, first of all, you're not gonna be great at either one of them. I talked about this when I was talking probably about a year ago. There was a quasi rap battle between Shaquille O'Neal, former NBA player, and Damian Lillard, current, at least as of this recording, current NBA player. And they were both, well, Damian Lillard was on somebody's podcast talking about how he's not just a basketball player who raps, he's a real rapper. He really wanted to be taken seriously as a rapper, and he was just asserting that he's a serious rapper and he wants to be compared to other rappers, not just to other basketball players. And he gave a little sideways diss to Shaquille O'Neal, and Shaq, being the showman that he is, he went and made a rap song dissing Damian Lillard, and then Damian Lillard made one, and they made a couple rap song disses to each other, and it was very entertaining. But what caught my attention about the whole thing was how Damian Lillard really wanted to assert that he should be taken seriously as a serious rapper, which makes no sense because Damian Lillard is Damian Lillard because of his ability to play basketball. Right? If he was that serious as a rapper, then he would be a rapper, right? Who played basketball on the side. But instead, he's a basketball player who raps on the side. And there's a reason for that, because Damian Lillard knows where his bread is buttered, and it ain't rapping. But the whole point is this. No basketball player has ever been great at basketball while at the same time they were pursuing a rap career. Nobody. Kobe tried to make a rap album. He never put it out, and Kobe ended up pretty good. Allen Iverson put out a rap album. He was about to put out a rap album. The NBA told him, you better not put out that rap album. He didn't. And the following season, I believe it was the following season, he won the MVP of the NBA. Didn't win the championship, but he won the MVP. Shaq made a couple of rap albums early in his career, and he was a very good basketball player. But the knock on Shaq was that you're good enough to dominate everybody, but you're not actually doing it because you keep not winning the championship. When Shaq stopped making rap albums, what happened? Shaq started winning championships. He ended up winning 4 championships. The proof is in the pudding. Damian Lillard has made his rap album, and who knows how, maybe by the time that you hear this, Damian Lillard's season may be over if the NBA does indeed initiate their restart in late July of 2020. I don't think Damian Lillard's team is a serious threat to win a championship, but we'll see. Maybe by the time this comes out, they already won the championship and all the pie will be in my face, but I doubt it. No one has ever, as far as basketball goes, been one of the best basketball players winning championships while at the same time asserting that they're great at something else other than basketball. Why? And the reason why this is because to be the best at something like basketball, when you're going against the top 1% of the 1% as your competitors, you need to be fully focused on it. So if you're trying to tell people, hey, I'm a rapper as well as a basketball player, that means you're not fully focused on basketball. And this is why, even though you may be very good, and Damian Lillard's a very good player. He's been on some of my fantasy teams, and he's done very well for me. So thank you, Damian Lillard, for those stats. At the same time, you ain't winning no championship against somebody who's 100% focused on basketball when you're not, simply because the competition level is a little bit too high. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, this is something that we have discussed before. If you adjust yourself to make yourself look a certain way to a certain audience just to appeal to them, but that's not the real you, that's not the true you, eventually you're either going to alienate the people who initially bought into the true you because they realize that you're being something different and you're not going back. They're like, oh, who the hell is this person? This is not the person that I signed up to follow. Or you're eventually going to reveal the initial true you to that audience that you had adjusted yourself to appeal to, and they're going to say, well, this is not the person that we signed up for. You were just putting on a show to impress us, and they're going to turn away from you. So again, you end up being nothing to nobody when you're trying to be everything to everybody. That's why these cliches are based in truth. So I'm saying all of that to emphasize this point. We're still on point number one here. The topic again is how to succeed by reducing complexity. Stop trying to do more than one thing at a time, i.e. Damian Lillard being a rapper and a basketball player, or you trying to appeal to one crowd and appeal to another crowd by being two completely different people. When you have a clear outcome in your life, because we're talking about complexity here, that doesn't necessarily, and when I say a clear outcome, meaning Shaquille O'Neal, all right, let me stop rapping, let me stop making movies, let me just focus on playing basketball so I can try to win the championship. Or you, let me just be this person who I am, and maybe that will turn some people away. Maybe some people will not like me, but the people who do like me and the people who are turned on to me, they're going to be 100% bought into me. All right, when you decide to do it that way, you give yourself a clear outcome and you have one clear direction. Let me make something clear to you. This does not necessarily guarantee that you will succeed. It does not necessarily make it easier for you to achieve your outcome. It does not. But it will make it a whole lot easier to see what the outcome is and see that you can get and see the finish line from where you are, and thus the steps for you getting from here where you are now to there, that outcome can be much more clear to you, because now you can at least see the damn finish line. I mean, if you're trying to be a rapper and a basketball player at the same time, what's the finish line? We don't know. Now, if you're trying to be two different people to two different audiences or two different other individuals, what's the finish line? We don't know. You can't make it to two finish lines at the same time. Right? You can't split your body in half at will and have one half go in one direction, one half go in a different direction. Right? Even if they're only 2 degrees apart, eventually you're going to split yourself in half, and that will probably be painful physically. So you need to give yourself one clear plan, one clear outcome, one clear direction, because when you're trying to do more than one thing in any way, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you're usually not going to get the best possible outcome out of any of those things. Doesn't mean you can't have multiple areas of interest. It doesn't mean that you cannot succeed in multiple areas, but you can't do them all at the same time. Now, if you have other resources that can help you maybe focus on these things over here while you focus on this thing over here, that can work. For example, if you have 10 people working for you as a staff, they can work on these areas over here while you focus on what the main thing is. And you can have your name on everything. So technically you're kind of doing all these things, but really you personally is only doing one thing. So you got to make sure, especially when we just keep the conversation to ourselves individually, you're not trying to do more than one thing at a time. Because even though you may be good at more than one thing at a time, you will never be great at anything when you're doing more than one. Let's read. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to succeed by reducing complexity. Point number 2, eliminate the non-essential. When COVID-19 hit in the spring of 2020, and it took the whole, in many countries, COVID-19 basically affected the entire world, but I don't live in any other country but the United States. So speaking of the United States experience, all of a sudden we had this new phrase, non-essential workers and essential workers. Now we have both. There was a clear line of delineation between being an essential worker and being a non-essential worker. And a lot of people, maybe some people who are listening to me right now, your work or your position, or maybe just you personally, was deemed non-essential. And all of a sudden, because you were non-essential, you weren't able to go to work, or you were asked not to come to work, or maybe you were told you don't work here anymore. All of a sudden, anyone who is non-essential didn't have the same opportunity to go to work and thusly get paid, thusly be able to do what you need to do financially for yourself and for your family. Now that non-essential term is a very harsh term for somebody to hear when they're being told, all right, you can't come to work and get paid because your role or you or your job or your company or the industry that you work in, it could be any of these at different levels, is just not essential to us or is not essential to the world, at least for right now. Okay, now maybe if things were normal, you could still work, but right now we can only deal with the essential people and you ain't one of them. That's a really harsh way to look. That's a really harsh way to communicate with people. I don't know if anyone actually made that statement to anyone, but if you think about it, that's exactly what was being said when people were told only essential workers are going to be working right now, and non-essential workers are y'all going to be put on hold, and maybe you'll come back, maybe you not, maybe you won't. For today's discussion, what I mean when we're talking about is essential and non-essential, there's a reason why I'm bringing that up, is you must do a harsh analysis of the elements that are around you in, again, whatever you happen to be working on where you're aiming for success right now. And it should be a main focus for you, as I just talked about in point number 1. do a harsh analysis of the elements around you and of what actually matters to your success versus what doesn't actually matter to your success. What are the essential elements of your success, and what are the non-essential elements that are maybe nice to have and they're cool to have around, but they actually play no role whatsoever in you reaching your success. This is again, a harsh analysis that you had to do of what's going on around you. And this is something that's a challenge for human beings to do because we are creatures of habit. We tend to do the same things over and over again. We tend to think the same ways. We respond to things the exact same responses over and over and over again. So to really make a harsh analysis of our habits and the actions that we're taking on a consistent basis, we're going to have to, it can be kind of cathartic to us because we have to look at certain things and say, oh, you know what? That actually is not working. This is actually not essential for me, even though I've been doing it for 5 years. Even though I've been hanging with this person for 2 years, even though I do this every day, my whole adult life, it is clearly not essential. Once you actually look at it, it's not essential. All right, and then you got to be willing to get rid of it. And that's not easy. It sounds good, all right? It sounds motivating and exciting, but it's not easy. So you have to figure out what is essential and what is not essential. What actually matters to your success. And the more understand, here's how you're going to, a framework you're going to use to look at this, a framework within this framework, the more moving parts that you have. And moving parts meaning different things that you have to manage, pay attention to, watch out for, care for, tend to consistently. The more moving parts that you have in your life or your business or your strategy, the harder it is and the harder it will continue to be to manage and execute those elements of the strategy. And you probably already know this. When you have a lot of moving parts in your life, all right, it gets harder and harder. Every time you introduce a new moving part, everything just becomes that much more hard because now you got to manage that. Now you got to pay attention to that. Now you got to deal with this. Now you got to make sure this is working. So you want to eliminate as many moving parts as you can, unless those moving parts are essential workers towards your success. The non-essential, they got to be put on hold or put to the side, or maybe you could just pause them until you get some other resources, you get some more hands in your organization, the organization of your life, who can help manage those things so that you don't have to. But you don't want to give yourself 10, 20, 50 different things to manage because, again, you're going to run out of brain power, you're going to run out of time, you're going to run out of talent. One of the three, maybe all three. Point number 3, today's topic is how to succeed by reducing complexity. Point number 3, let's do the idiot experiment. That's what we're going to call this. Point number 3 is the idiot experiment. All right, and this idiot experiment is, of course, not for you, but it's for all the idiots, out there. Everybody who's not listening to this right now. The idiot experience goes thusly: make your goals, processes, and explanations clear enough that even a relative idiot can understand it. When I say relative idiot, I mean for that specific area of expertise. Listen, I don't know anything about let's say the waste management business, how garbage trucks works. I know they ride around and they pick up the trash and dump it in the truck, but I don't know where it goes after that, how they get rid of it, what's the process, how is it helping the environment, is it destroying the environment? I don't know anything about it. So I'm a relative idiot in that industry. So if I was talking to someone who works in the waste management industry, let's say some executive or some manager or someone who's just very knowledgeable, they've written books about garbage trucks, that person should be able to explain their process in such a way that a relative idiot such as myself could understand it, and then I can go explain it to somebody else, at least a rough version of it. That's the idiot experiment. That's how it works. So you, knowing the area or areas that you know really well as an expert, can you explain the process of what you do, how you do it, and why you're doing it to a person who knows nothing about it in such a way that they would clearly understand what's going on, why it's going on, and how it's going on? Can you do that? If the answer is no, then you are failing the idiot experiment. You need to fix and clarify those processes until an idiot can understand it. Geico, I think it's Geico, they have this commercial campaign that they've been running for years. Actually, I don't know if they even still run it. It says Geico is so simple that even a caveman can do it. Now, everyone has seen those commercials or heard the ads. And the whole premise of that is that this caveman, this primitive human who knows nothing about technology, knows nothing about smartphones, knows nothing about any of the things that's going on in the modern world, can still understand how to get insurance from Geico because they make it so simple. That's Geico's whole point of that advertisement campaign, is to let you know that it is so simple and so clear that even a complete idiot who knows nothing can understand it and you can be fully insured by Geico. All right, that's what they're explaining to you, right? And not saying it in so many words. Your aim is to make your stuff so simple that even a caveman, idiot level person who doesn't know you, doesn't know your industry, does not know your process, can understand you, your industry, and your process, or at least understand how it works and nothing else. Maybe they might not be able to do it, but they'll be able to explain it to somebody else. They can see what's supposed to happen even if they can't physically do it themselves. They get it. You understand? People should be able to get it, what you're doing and how you're doing it. If they don't get it, then that means you have a little bit too much complexity in what's going on. And I heard Jim Rohn, who's one of the forefathers of the personal development industry, he said, if it's hard for you to explain something to another person, maybe it would help if you explain it to yourself a little bit more clearly. If other people can't quite understand what you're saying, it's probably because you couldn't quite understand it either. And one thing with all of us, especially you creatives out there, often we have these great ideas in our heads. We have a picture of what we want to create in our heads. And if we are the only ones working on it, we can pretty much create that picture with enough time and in the right resources, we can create it. But as soon as you introduce another person into your process and they're helping you and you need to explain to them what they need to do to help you out, you often realize, hey, maybe this process is not as clear as I thought it was. Maybe this is not as simple as I thought it was. Maybe this is not as easy as I thought it was. Now, some creatives who are not good at delegation, not good at explaining what you do, you get frustrated with people because they don't quite understand what you're saying. And others of us, hopefully you're in the second group, once you understand other people don't understand you, you realize that the problem is not them, the problem is you. The problem is your process is too complex. That's why another person can't understand it. Your process should be so simple that even a fool can understand exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. Even if they cannot do it, they should be able to understand it. If other people cannot understand what you're doing, how and why you're doing it, the error is on your part. I talked about delegation. Delegation 101 for entrepreneurs back in masterclass 1100. If you have not heard that masterclass, I suggest you do. It is one of the essential masterclass, especially for any entrepreneurs or freelancers out there. Again, number 1100, Delegation 101 for entrepreneurs, and also masterclass number 664, how to delegate work in your business. Delegation is a communication skill, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to reduce complexity amongst people, you must get clear, you must get really good with your ability to communicate. If you are not communicating clearly to other people, then it's not their fault that they're not getting it, it's your fault. Anytime the communication fails, the failure is always on the part of the person delivering the communication, not the part of the person who is supposed to be hearing it. Masterclass number 112, the key to success, clarity. Right there, number 112. And again, those of y'all who are, if you're listening to this, you're in the game group membership or working in your game university. If you are not in the smartphone application, which you should be, but if you're not, I don't know how you couldn't be, but if you're not, make sure you add that smartphone application, add it to your smartphone, of course. Follow the simple instructions in the game group membership. Is right there in the second tab, how to get the Work on Your Game show on your smartphone. That's what it's called, so you can't miss it. And all of the episodes, every episode that has ever been published in the history of this show is on there, and every episode that will be published in the future of this show will be in there. As long as you're in the university, you have access to everything. And trust me, everything is only going to get better and is only going to get bigger. So you are in the right place at the right time, and you are the right person. So here's the experiment. We're still on point number 3. Explain your stuff. Whatever you are thinking of right now when we talk about reducing complexity in the area of your life, explain your stuff to someone who doesn't know anything about it, and then just ask them, are you clear on this? Does this make sense? Do you understand what I just explained to you? And there's either a hell yes, if they got to think about it, if they're like, I kind of get it, or maybe, or if they start asking questions, what that means is your process is not clear enough. You have too much complexity. You need to clarify it. You need to make it more simple. Not them. They're not the dummy. Maybe they are a dummy. Actually, maybe they are very stupid. That's why it's called the idiot experiment. All right, your clarity needs to be so clear that even the idiot can get it. If the idiot can't get it, it ain't clear enough. All right, now let's recap today's class, which is how to succeed by reducing complexity. Definition of complicated, which is within the definition of everyone I found of complexity, consisting of many interconnecting parts or elements, intricate. Complexity slows people down at best, and with average and below people, it stops them completely, so we should deal with this. Number 1, stop trying to do more than one thing at a time. You chase 2 rabbits, you catch neither, you try to be everything to everybody, you end up nothing to nobody. Be clear what the finish line is so you can actually get to it. Number 2, eliminate the non-essential. And COVID-19 hit, a lot of people who were deemed, all of a sudden, unbeknownst to them, they were non-essential in their work. Well, look, how was I non-essential? You were paying me all these years. Now, all of a sudden, they're non-essential. You need to look at your life and figure out what's non-essential for you. If a COVID-19 crisis hit your life, specifically your life, not hitting the whole world and then affecting you, but just your life specifically, what would you get rid of and what would you keep? I had someone tell me, they know who they are, they're probably listening to this, I'm pretty sure they are. They said, you know, when I was trying to decide what I was going to keep and what I was going to get rid of when COVID-19 hit, I decided I was staying in the game group membership because it is essential to my life. I hope that what you get here at Work on Your Game You and you're getting from the show every day is essential. Even if you had to eliminate a bunch of other stuff, you realize that this is essential because it's going to help you get better and help you move forward in life. That's my goal, and I'm going to give you 10x. Whatever you give me, I'm going to give you 10x back. That's my promise anytime you tune in anything Dre Baldwin creates. And number 3, the idiot experiments. Make your goals, processes, and explanations clear enough that even a relative idiot can understand them. Geico had the commercial, so simple that even caveman can do it. All right, make sure your material, your processes, your explanations are so simple that even a caveman can get it. If you had to explain it more than once, it ain't clear enough. Make it clearer. Work on your game. Dre all day.